Hey there, good morning. It is 9:49 a.m. It is May 29th. It is Thursday morning, and I just dug right in this morning. I got up, got dressed, had some coffee, and took care of business. I had to, do some routine follow-up work based off of my appointment that I had yesterday at the Kern County Department of Human Services. Okay, so I woke up this morning and I needed to retrieve some information so I can upload it into their website, And so as I was, doing this morning, you know, um, I had to make a phone call to the EDD, which is the Employment Development Department. And this particular video, I'm addressing some pretty important people here. This goes for the State of California EDD Department, as well as other government offices, as well as, and let's just pretend we're all having this big breakfast, like lunch or type thing, and we're going to have President Trump at the head of the table, right? Okay, so I have been writing out more of my scripts for my what do you call it? I'm adding more to these scripts, okay? And I'm narrating, and I'm doing a really shitty job. I'm trying to pick up the pace, getting this stuff in order, And like I said, I've been dealing with depression, and me just feeling like annoyed annoyed basically. Okay, so but anyway, I'm running behind. Okay, but when I think about it, it makes sense that I would run behind because this is a very big project. And like I said, I'm the only one who's working on it. I do not have access to a network to help me with graphics, to help me with narration. I'm doing the whole shebang. Okay, so I'm doing the best I can. But it's something that's important to me because I can see, that a lot of people are operating based off of their social clicks, which I know that Rex Laverne played a big role in, the brainwashing. Now, I know that Rex Laverne, I'm trying to figure this out, okay? I don't think it's that important, but I do, well, okay, what I'm trying to figure out is, let me get to this part, okay, is that Rex Laverne had struggled with some sort of religious delusion, okay? And I do understand that I would say, go so far to call it apocalyptic type delusions, to where he was influencing, I would say traditional Mormon values or Mormon like values. Like I said, I realize that this religion has been encompassed by many other religions. And one of the reasons why that bothered me so much is because each religion has always shouted out that they were the truth. Okay. And so this tells me that there was hypocrisy, which tells me that, people have allowed, and maybe it was evil from the very beginning. I don't know. Okay. But the churches are unfortunately very corrupt. Okay. Now, uh, where I'm going with this is that, I called the EDD today. Okay. And, because I have to make sure that I have to make sure that all, my employment or income opportunities are exhausted before the county will actually provide help, which makes sense. Okay, so I went and got online this morning to register for the EDD. Okay, and I was using my old login information, so then it wanted to take me to this site to verify my ID. Okay, and then I got stopped because it was giving me this email address that I long have not used, and I highly doubt that I would have used that email address. I'm just saying, okay, anything for relating to EDD or anything that relates to public type information, I generally use either two email addresses. That would be my Gmail account from Maria S. Gordon 71, or my Outlook account. Okay. So I get this little feeling that perhaps maybe there might be some sort of tampering going on. So I decided to file my claim by phone. Okay. So like I said, every time I have to deal with agents, meaning like anything, customer service, PG&E, anything. Okay, I do not like interacting with people because I understood that this hate campaign, okay, has been orchestrated through churches. Okay, Rex Laverne may have been somebody who was over enthusiastic, but do I believe that his hatred for people like clones and other bloodlines, or wanted to play a game, was fueled by what was heard in the pulpit at these particular religions? Possibly so. And here, what I want to say is that First of all, I think it's important to understand if you are in a position of power, whether that be a clergyman, you are a teacher, if you are a manager, if you are a parent, okay, when you disrespect people, okay, out in the open, okay, it immediately gives people the confirmation that you condone this sort of behavior, and they too will follow your lead, and they will instigate whatever sort of hate crime that you have in the back of your mind. Now, I have studied this my entire life. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I talk about professionalism and why it's important for leaders or people who perceive themselves to be leaders to behave in a certain way. Okay, what Rex Laverne did. Okay, now I'm going back to the inspiration for this. Now, I understand that this underground crime syndicate is very much intertwined with these religions. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why, it works in a covert operation. This is one of the reasons why I'm 50 something, 54 years old, and just finding out, that I actually found out I was adopted like 2 years ago or something like that. But still, okay, it operates on darkness because it was the foundation of it was a lie. And this shakes a lot of people to their core. Why? Because a lot of people have for their entire lives have believed in the church, have, contributed things to the church. And perhaps maybe they were doing so because they were dealing with pressure, financial pressure, manipulation of their employment, being threatened to be ostracized. As long as you are being compliant to what these churches are telling you to do, then you're part of the group. Okay. And then you look at people who are on the outside of this church group, right? You know that these people are marked for destruction. You know that you're participating in their genocide game because these people are very sick. They want to have you come in for job interviews knowing that they're marking you for death, and they think it's funny. And you participated in it. Okay, because you were being a good little Christian, a good compliant little Christian. And do not ever think for 1 minute that I had anything against people who believed in God. That has nothing to do with it. Yes, religious corruption is real. Okay, and I've given examples of it. Given examples of people. I mentioned Jim Jones. Okay, I've mentioned the guy from the Haley Bopp dude. People can get out of their mind when it comes to religion. Okay, as a matter of fact, this is the reason why this country was established to have freedom of religion. Okay, because and it shouldn't be debatable. Okay, so my issue is that I understand that Rex, along with maybe he was inspired by these religions, okay, his religious doctrine, or perhaps maybe he was getting funded, promoted, and he was just one of their agents. Whatever the case is, we now understand that this group is working covertly, has worked covertly to monopolize things like employment, as well as business opportunities. And this is where they were initiating what we would like to, what some people would refer to as like Armageddon. Okay. Now, please, Mr. Trump, President Trump, I need your ear. Okay. Because I am developing a lot of respect for you. Okay. I am starting to understand, like I've always understood that this kind of stuff happens, but I'm understanding how it infiltrates. Okay, it infiltrates through church memberships, it infiltrates through political, unfortunately, like I said, I had referred to these sort of demonic entities, these like demiurge type things, and I try to stay off the spiritual. Okay, but we'll see how it can creep in. It can creep in because people aren't using checks and balances and stuff like this in the White House, or at least they haven't in previously, or maybe never considered it. Okay, it is very important. It is not because I am a selfish person. I am not a selfish person, but I do believe that I believe in the United States. I believe that these people who wrote things like the Constitution were very enlightened individuals, very intelligent individuals, and I do believe that that. It has been blinded. People have been blinded, or maybe just over brainwashed. And a lot of it is the education system. Like I said, if you get educated by, for example, maybe a religious institution through kindergarten, through high school, and then go on to college, all you're going to know is that indoctrination. Okay, but there's a different world out there that is maybe more open to different religious ideas, whereas these people might have developed ideas of they're thinking of this apocalyptic, let me go kill everybody, genocidal type stuff. What we're seeing right now with things like Indeed.com, these ghost ads and stuff like that, we are seeing genocide played out in motion. With these fake accounts like on LinkedIn and all this other stuff, these people infiltrate, people like me, like targeted individuals. They infiltrate people's social media accounts. They like to monopolize this sort of stuff. And in their mind, it is a form of religious terrorism. Okay. If people feel as though they have entitlement to work things behind the scenes, like, taking people's money or blocking people's money through things like for example, my Patreon and Ko-fi. Okay. That right there, where in the world does a person get this sort of idea that they're entitled to steal and think that it's okay? Okay, we're talking about religious delusions. Whether this person was delusional or not, okay, we need to understand that people in this country do not understand the definition of what theft is and what stealing is, and they need to. Okay, we have a very ignorant society, and it's not just the United States; it's everywhere. And the reason why it's everywhere is because we have this religious thinking. Okay, we have not so much that it's not so much about Christ's focus. It's about a particular group of people who have a desire to dominate the world, and this is what the effect of it is coming out and playing out in the workplace, making people's lives miserable, making people feel like they have no reason to live. And this is exactly what it is. This is not American. This whole thing is not American. Okay. Um, Today, when I was talking to the EDD person, I kept thinking, I was going to read him a script that I am writing out for my portion of um, the human trafficking video that I am splitting. Okay, we talked about my future goals, as far as making an income. What we discussed in my interview with the EDD today. And like I said, I'm always going to try to keep my bases open. I know that I'm associated with a network. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, as long as they want to arrange a job for me and I'm working there, and they understand that I'm not sitting here trying to be playing games, or I'm not getting hired to be whatever. I'm getting there. I'm getting a job because of my skill level. Okay, but I'm also open to doing, open work, like, freelancing type stuff. And I'm already writing out my brochures. I'm trying to work things out and make sure I'm covering my bases. Yes, I am somebody who covers their bases or tries to come up with a plan B. Okay, and I see the importance of a plan B. Okay, I was somebody who looks ahead, and because I look ahead, this is one of the reasons why I understood that we were going to end up where we are now from the very beginning when I started making these videos. Okay, because because I understand there's a lot of ignorance and there's a lot of demonic energy, and I hate to talk about demonic stuff when I'm talking and addressing people like the president, even though I believe the president fully understands that we do live in a very spiritual world. However, when I try to eliminate that sort of talk when I'm being inclusive. Okay, but we have a lot of bad behavior that goes on in the country. So let me tell you what I was wanted to read this particular person, because I understand the EDD is a government agency. If you'll notice online when you go onto the EDD, I think it's edd.ca.gov. Okay, so let me read this because I put this together, and it is going to be a part of my moral reset, as well as my seminar or my presentation that I will be presenting to or plan on presenting to employers. Okay, it says all government offices in the United States must operate within the framework of the Constitution and its amendments, which outline the powers and limitations of government entities. This framework protects individual rights and ensures that government actions are lawful. The U.S. Constitution does not establish a state religion as stated in the First Amendment, which prohibits Congress from making any law that respects the establishment of religion. This principle ensures that the government remains neutral in religious matters, allowing for freedom of belief and practice among all citizens. The laws in this country align with the Constitution. Okay, we're talking about laws, civil law, business law, etc. Okay, the laws in this country align with the Constitution and adhere to its principles and provisions, ensuring that they do not violate the rights and liberties it guarantees. The Constitution serves serves as the supreme law of the land, meaning that any law that conflicts with it is considered invalid. State and federal discrimination laws protect individuals from unfair treatment based on characteristics such as race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, and disability. Oh my God, that's like pretty much all me, right? Anyway, these laws ensure equal opportunities in areas like employment, education, housing, and public accommodations. Now, why I'm saying this is because I understand that this creepy little religious group has worked its way into things like I suspect, things like my utility companies, like this information is on data banks, okay, is what I'm believing. And also, I am a high profile person because of the exploitation, okay. Uh, like I said, the EDD is a government office, and I understand one of the things that Rex wanted to do. He wanted to limit me. He wanted to groom me for accepting some sort of Mormonism or some sort of religious idea. And we have people in certain offices, and I'm not saying that this particular person that I was speaking to this morning was a part of it, okay? But when I get on the phone or communicate with anyone, I always have to feel or suspect or be open to the idea that they might be. Okay, because this has happened to me so many times in the past. And because, they made this a religious issue, and because, it's basically a cult. The reason why it's a cult is because if all churches are telling me or believing that they have different afterlives, they have different different standards, okay, slightly different doctrines, but yet operating under the same umbrella, obviously this is, no offense, and excuse my language, but it's bullshit. Okay, it's bullshit. Okay, so yeah, religion has always been man-made, and it is open to becoming corrupt, and this is what we're looking at. Okay, so this person works for the EDD, which is a government office. So I wanted to read that to him, but I kept thinking, Maria, just let it go. Let it go. But I did let this person know that I'm a victim of human trafficking. And I believe that he knows this, what I'm talking about. I 100% believe he knows what I'm talking about, because I do believe this person knows who I am through databanks. So this is one of the reasons why I'm talking to Mr. Donald Trump. Okay. I understand that, there's this thing that's been going on for a very long time, but these people, any religious thinking or any of this residual Rex Laverne stuff needs to get cleared up out of people's data banks, meaning these targeted individuals need to be set free. There is no reason why somebody should have anything in their data bank assist any government, especially government, okay? Any government office should have any sort of limitation on anybody based off of religion. Now, I think that Rex Laverne resented the fact that I would go to the 99-cent store. And he resented the fact that I'm somebody who, enjoys arts and crafts. He didn't like the fact, and it's based on what? Religion. I do not impose your religion on me, okay? And so this is what I'm talking to the president about, okay? I'm letting him know that this has been going on, okay? And I think it's important that, and I'm sure people in the White House are always going to trump religion, meaning you guys are in charge, okay? You own this, meaning like this is yours, okay? And it was set up to run, the country in a way that is not biased. Okay, now they resented me also. Rex Laverne resented me because I'm somebody who considers myself a woman of substance. Yes, okay, am I girly? I am a girly girl. But you know what? If it was illegal, clothes and stuff would not be up for sale. And if they were, I would have to show ID and all this whole rigmarole. No, it is not. It is an option. You know what I mean? And he wanted me to, and also he wanted my family to have some sort of dominion or some sort of, rights over me to where I have to ask for some sort of authorization. This is bullshit. It's illegal. Excuse me, Mr. President. It's illegal. I'm over the age of 18. Okay. And I do get the intuitive message that my rights are being recognized, but I want to make sure that there are no third parties involved in my transactions. And I would think that this is something that other targeted individuals would also appreciate. Now, what I understand, by looking at videos from the last few months, and I don't really watch a whole bunch of videos, but when I do, I tend to notice the ones that have this little, this slight kind of leaning of corruption, where we're talking about, I had heard a lot of men talking about, well, we can't be empathetic and empathy is wrong, blah, 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 blah. The reason I'm referring to a few months ago, because I know that these people were like charging full on ahead with their little religious, apocalyptic thing that really nobody was on board for, even prepared for. Because basically, what these people were trying to do were putting pressure on people to, get married, the kingdom spouse thing, encouraging people who can't afford a bunch of kids to have a bunch of kids so that they can get, and I'm referring to a lot of white people, okay? Referring to, and there's nothing wrong with producing people. There's nothing wrong with wanting your race to thrive. I am not saying that, okay? But not at the races that, or the detriment of other races, okay? We're talking about genocide, okay? And if people want to increase their race, their race, or have more children, produce more children, I don't see anything wrong with that, okay? But I don't believe that this whole thing was well thought out, because how it would end up is that there's going to be a bunch of resentment, because women are eventually going to wake up. Their women are eventually going to wake up and realize that they were coerced into, living a life that is completely unfulfilling. Okay, so basically, I think that this particular religious group was encouraging a lot of people to basically live a very miserable life. Hang on a second. Okay, my cat is acting very strange. Okay. Okay. Anyway, I would think that this particular religion has encouraged people to live a very miserable life. Okay, setting them up for, things that maybe they are not ready to handle, or maybe they can't handle. Do I believe that they? Yes, I believe that this particular religious thinking, whether it was derived from Rex Laverne or encouraged by the Mormon faith or whatever, was basically making people becoming slaves. Okay, I'm talking a lot more about this issue of human trafficking in my both of my presentations. Okay, because I'm making one video and splitting it and using it for two different reasons. Okay, and so I will be contacting and reaching out to employers probably next week. I know I'm kind of running behind. I have a lot of things going through my mind right now. You know what I mean? I'm very disturbed that, that people have been exploited in this sort of manner. It is one, like I said, it is one thing to want to populate the earth. Okay, I fully get that. Okay, but if you're bringing them into hell, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, and I do believe that this was some sort of manipulation game that benefited maybe them in some way, especially if they're looking at things under the I guess with glasses on, with that look relate to maybe looking at people as commodities or something, which is a form of slavery. Okay, and people need to be aware of this. Okay, they need to be aware of this. I am looking forward to talking about this human trafficking thing issue with a lot of people, and I'm hoping that people will be receptive to understanding it. Okay, because it's a very serious issue, a very serious. A lot of people think that everything's fine, but they're actually trafficked. You know what I mean? And their lives are falling apart because some people believe that they have more control over individuals than they really have a right to. And this needs to stop. Okay, and do I believe it's religious undertone? Yes, it is. And when I was talking about the whole issue about the lack of empathy, the reason why they were promoting this is because they wanted to encourage people to go full on ahead with their genocide plan. Don't feel sorry for these people. Forget that. We have a mission. We got to forget about that. Okay, we are on a mission to get our, exhibit, or what do you call it, have dominion over this entire earth. Okay, this is scary. And when I am online, or have to look for work or whatever, I feel like I'm looking at it. I feel like, I'm going on Indeed, things like Indeed.com, and I have a death threat reminder. That's exactly what it is. Or I'm talking to a customer service representative from somewhere, and I get these pauses and these questions that kind of come out of nowhere. And I'm saying the guy that I spoke with earlier, he was a very polite person, but still, okay, it has just left me feeling like I don't trust anybody anymore. Nobody in the United States of America should be making phone calls to any customer service agent, especially if they've been dealing with targeting and having to worry about it. Okay, because I know that this bullying campaign has just gotten way out of control. Okay, and it needs to stop. So it's like, I'm hoping that my efforts of the moral reset is going to make some difference. I am addressing certain agencies in the moral reset, asking them to take proactive measures and like making sure that no corruption comes in their company and no corruption comes out of their company. That's all I can do. You know what I mean? But I wish that this never happened. And this whole idea, and I'm going to tell you right now, these people have been brainwashed. These people have been brainwashed and they have lost a lot in their lives. Okay, and it's shameful. It's shameful that people have become enslaved to something that has given them absolutely nothing but misery. And I was never even a member of a church, but they were throwing this shit on me anyway. Excuse my language, Mr. President. But they were throwing this on me anyway. This expectation. I don't want anything to do with Mormonism, okay, or any other church at this point, okay? And I'm saying is, if churches want to stay together, meaning that they want to stay together, because some of these people have been members for many years and they're used to their church families or whatever, it makes sense to still have a congregation, okay, for that reason. But this doctrine of dominion theology and everything else, and then infiltrating, telling people how they're supposed to spend their money, because what they're doing is they're trying to create a slave class. Okay, she can't be entitled to this, but she can. They can have this and they can't. And this is based on what? Their religion. Okay, religion needs to get out. It is that simple. Okay, and we know that this whole program is operated from Rex, whether Rex Laverne, whether it was him creating this because he was based off of the ideologies of these religions, or it was something that was told from him from the pulpit for him to act on this source. It doesn't matter what. Okay, it doesn't matter what religion he is, whether it's an Abrahamic religion, Indian, East Indian, Jewish, whatever. It doesn't matter. It does not belong in making decisions when it comes to what goes on in this White House. Okay, and therefore filtering down to the United States of America. Anyway, Mr. President, I just do not know what's wrong with people, but that dude was crazy. Anyway, I understand that the intuitive message that I got is that a lot of people are resenting religion right now. And, some people have been going to church for a very long time. Like I said, that does not necessarily mean that you have to abandon your spirits. Churches could still be open. They could still function. You could still enjoy the company and the what do you call it? The brotherhood or whatever that you have with your church members, if that's what you choose to do. But certain doctrines are obviously going to have to change. It makes sense, right? Okay, so anyway, yes, I did get the intuitive message about my purchases. Okay, well, I had talked about me being spied on, people talking about what I buy and stuff like that. I'm offended. Okay, and why do they not want me to buy it? Is because it's based on their religion. Okay, um, and it also gives me that vibe of, oh, it sounds very Ku Klux Klan-y. Ku Klux Klan-y. Isn't that cute? That's so cute. Okay, Ku Klux Klan-y. It does sound very Ku Klux Klan-y. Okay, like, the whole Pepsi, you can have Pepsi and not Coke, or vice versa. Or, they would get upset if black people would wear nice clothes or whatever, that kind of stuff. No, that's just not going to happen. Okay, I have the right to spend my money and I have the right to do so privately. The exploitation that goes on with these people is just unreal. Anyway, Christianity is looked upon as evil by a lot of people. And I'm going to have to say that I believe that do I want to believe that? How can I say this? Yeah, I'm going to say that people who have that sort of mentality are evil. Okay. Do I believe that everybody is evil? I don't know. You know what I mean? I do. Some people are just ignorant. Okay. And like I said, there really isn't, there really isn't that much difference between ignorance and evil, because, if you do something and you don't know, you can cause a lot of problems not understanding, the entire process of how things work. There's always this cause and effect, and ignorance is something that to me can contribute to evil. But anyway, yeah, the very fact, what bothered me and what changed, made up my mind many years ago that I didn't want to have anything to do with religion, is because I used to notice the hypocrisy in the people. I also understood that a lot of the people did not have the ability to think for themselves. I also understood that a lot of the Christian people that I knew were actually miserable, and they were desperate, like desperate to try to, put their misery onto me. I'm already miserable just living under a system, meaning that I had to work with these people, I had to go to school with these people, I had to live next door to these people, I had to go, my area was around these people growing up and throughout the years or whatever. So, yeah, these people are really not all there. Okay. I remember seeing I used to call it pastor worship. They would, everything they would say would be repeating what their pastor said, as if their pastor was some sort of like, God or something. You know what I mean? But see, and they were deliberately kept ignorant. They were deliberately kept ignorant and on a hamster wheel, this big old hamster wheel. You know what I mean? And I'm revealing a hamster wheel. Anyway. Also, I get the intuitive message that it is understood that the only people that I consider my family is my son. My son is Houston Eiler Gordon. He is the only person that is my family. I think, what bothers me so much about, the whole trafficking issue and the fact that I had this, my biological mother who has no rights over me, who gave me up for adoption, her and this collaboration, that is offensive to me. It is very henny penny, that story where, like, nobody contributes to anything, but now all of a sudden you want to pay me attention, and the exploitation of it. Okay, it's heartless. It is unspeakably heartless. That somebody would even expect anything out of me. But maybe in Rex's mind, families are supposed to. No, that is outright called slavery, is what that is. Okay, I am not I don't connect with Diana Ross. Okay, my only child and my adoptive family, I do not communicate with because of the tragedy of this whole setup of being adopted into a family under this Joseph Mengele thing. That I personally think that church members, neighbors, and even just the fact that it was started off with a Nazi plan created a very toxic environment into my family. First of all, you do not have that sort of friction that should ever exist among your siblings. Okay, this sort of competitiveness, this sort of, this desire to always like put somebody, triangulate people, make them look bad, have no real compassion for them. If they did have any compassion for me, they would have never participated in the first place. Okay, and they would have let me know that this was going on. So the way I look at it, no, I don't recognize my adoptive family either. Because like I said, it was, after all, at the end of the day, it was a setup. It was a setup under some sort of Nazi plan. Okay. And like I said, they killed my dad. I do believe they killed my dad. And they were trying to kill me for a very, very long time. And this is part of it. This is one of the reasons why I do not like talking to customer service representatives of any kind. I wanted to get my business done at the Department of Kern County, whatever. I just want to, once I'm done with it, I want to be done with it. When he told me it would be good for me to go to the EDD and apply, I was like, oh shit, I don't want to do that because I do not want to communicate with anyone. Okay, I am tired of having any opportunity to have to interact with people, fearing, wondering, are they just some sort of mindless agent? Yes, that kind of brainwashing. If that does not belong in government offices, that religious mindset, the discriminating, the genocide plan does not belong in government offices, or really any employment, any office here in the United States, but especially government offices. Okay, religion does not run the country. Okay, any religion. Okay, any religion does not run the country. What else did I want to say? I'm glad that people have a nice opinion of me. I will be reaching out to some people. Oh, I want to talk a little bit more about women of substance. Okay, I talked about making a group, a professional group about women of substance, and I think that Rex Laverne resented that. I think some people, they have high standards. You know what I mean? And yeah, I do believe that people. I like clothes. That's what gives me my joy. Like I said, if there was something wrong with clothes, they would probably put some sort of age limit on it and put it, yeah, they would probably put an age limit. You had to be over the age of 18 to wear it or whatever. Clothes is a way that identifies who you are. And also it speaks volumes. It says, hey, this is who I am. And it attracts the kind of people that you want in your life. Okay. And I resent, the Mormon thinking about, coming. See, to me, what makes it, okay, I hate to talk about things that are demonic, but okay, we'll refer to it as evil. Okay. Being who you are, is the most important thing that you can ever be. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why we love freedom. Okay, that's what freedom is. Okay, now I think some people, like people like Rex Laverne, feared freedom because it wasn't in line with him and people like him being able to control other people. If people had their own specific choices, people would walk the hell away from Mormonism, right? And obviously they can at any time, or whatever religion that is, okay? But these people had an agenda and they used other people to promote it, such as forcing women into situations like they were trying to force me into situations, encouraging early marriage with women, encouraging big families but not being able to financially support them. This is a problem. Okay, and I'm going to be going into more of it in Moral Says That, Phrase That. But I am working on right now, how I'm going to orchestrate this whole presentation thing. Yes, I'm asking for payment for the presentation. Okay, and I'm trying to figure all of that out. I do not have special equipment, like those little things where you like flip, or the little pointer thing. I don't have that. So chances are I'm going to be doing it through some sort of social media thing like YouTube or whatever, but arranging payments in a certain way. That is one of my options. I am looking forward to talking to other people. I'm a little nervous, you know what I mean, but at the same time, I think it's important that people be aware of it. And I also was a little reluctant to talk about the supernatural aspect of it, but I am going to briefly talk about how the burden babies got filtered in and combined with the issue of the Operation Paperclip and the Cabbage Patch babies, the manufacturing of babies, the distribution of these babies, and how they got distributed through the church, and also encouraged by church people, to bring up other old relatives into these projects, and talk a little bit about mind control. You know what I mean? The mind control of people being fully aware and also benefiting from these children, but yet somehow playing dumb when you talk to them about things like reincarnation, or like I brought up the Dolly the sheep thing, like, oh, yeah, Dolly the sheep, that's amazing, but they know they don't put it two and two together that cloning is like right in their own neighborhood. See, this sort of stuff, but yeah, I'm going to try to eliminate as much of the supernatural aspect of it as I can, because I understand, like, it's professionalism is what I'm trying to do and come across as. So anyway, I am going to wrap up this video. I do think this is important. This message goes for Mr. President, as well as the White House, as well as the United States, trickling down into every little city, county, town, every little nook and cranny of the United States of America. And I will be back with another video sometime later. Take care. Bye-bye.